The night the petition exploded past 10 million signatures, the sky above Seoul looked strangely alive. Clouds shifted like restless waves, city lights flickered as if whispering warnings, and the air carried an electricity that people felt in their bones before they even checked their phones. Something was coming, something enormous, unstoppable, and born from a collective heartbeat that refused to stay silent. It began shortly after midnight. Someone refreshed the global petition site, expecting the usual slow climb. But instead, the number jumped from 7,900,000 to 8,200,000 to 9,400,000, as if millions of hands across Asia were clicking all at once. The server trembled under the weight of outrage, grief, and desperation. Notifications erupted across screens, vibrating through pockets, echoing through rooms lit only by night lamps and quiet tears. Within minutes, hashtags blasted into trending lists worldwide. Hashtag Justice for Yu Menglong. Hashtag We Want Answers. Hashtag 10 million voices. Hashtag Remember Menglong. The world was awake now, and not a single voice among them sounded calm. By 1:03 a.m., the impossible happened, the counter surged past the 10 million mark. The site froze. Then it crashed. Servers at the hosting company overheated so fast that engineers were called into emergency meetings. IT specialists stared at error logs that made no sense. "This isn't a spike," one whispered. "This is a tidal wave." Outside, in the quiet, rain-scented alleys of Myeongdong, people began gathering without saying a word to each other. Strangers lifted their phones toward the sky, showing the last screenshot they caught before the site crashed. 10 million signatures. 10 million demands. 10 million hearts refusing to let Yu Menglong's story fade into silence. A young woman dropped to her knees in the middle of the street, clutching her chest as tears streamed down her face. "He didn't deserve this," she whispered. A man walking by stopped, knelt beside her, and placed his jacket over her shoulders. He didn't know her. He didn't need to. Their grief recognized each other like old friends. Across the sea, in Beijing, millions sat in dark living rooms illuminated only by phone screens. Some curled into blankets. Some sat rigid with fists clenched. Some whispered Yu Menglong's name as if afraid the walls might crumble around them. And then, as if answering all their breaths at once, the petition page flickered back online, only for the number to jump instantly from 10 million to 10,450,000. It was no longer a petition. It was a global uprising. The petition organizers logged in and saw signatures from Brazil, Nigeria, France, Japan, Australia, names pouring in from every corner of the world. Mothers, students, soldiers, office workers, actors, influencers, nurses, taxi drivers. People who had never spoken his language. People who had never watched his shows. People who didn't know his story but felt the injustice radiating from the headlines. By 1:30 a.m., the movement had grown so large that the Korean National Assembly received an alert. The Speaker of the House, half asleep in his private residence, opened his tablet only to drop it seconds later. It wasn't just the signatures, it was the comments. Thousands per minute. Stories, pleas, eyewitness accounts, questions, cries for answers that had been suppressed for too long. The comments section read like a chorus. "Stop hiding the truth. We demand full transparency. Reopen the investigation. He deserves justice. We will not be silent. We are watching." The pressure built so quickly that government servers lagged under the volume of emails and formal petitions submitted within the hour. Seoul's streets were no longer empty. Hundreds gathered outside the National Assembly building holding signs with Yu Menglong's smiling portrait printed beneath bold red letters, "Justice Now." Police arrived not to disperse, but to guide people into organized lines, because even the officers felt something in the air, a heaviness that made arguing impossible. Around 2:10 a.m., a sudden ripple moved through the crowd like a wave of electricity. People gasped, pointed to their phones, then raised them high above their heads. A notification banner glowed across thousands of screens simultaneously. President Lee Jae-myung issues urgent statement. Crowds fell into stunned silence. This wasn't scheduled. This wasn't ordinary. This wasn't political. This was a reaction born from something far deeper. The broadcast appeared on every major platform. The president was seated in the same dimly lit room from his previous tribute, the single candle glowing at his side, the same folded letter on the desk before him. But tonight, His expression looked different. He didn't look grief-stricken. He didn't look exhausted. He looked determined. 10 million voices have spoken, he began. And when 10 million hearts rise together, the world must listen. The candle flame behind him flickered violently as if reacting to the weight of his words. People leaned closer to their screens. The silence grew so heavy it felt almost sacred. I have seen your signatures, he continued. I have read your messages. I have witnessed your grief, and I share it. Tonight, the nation has made a decision I cannot ignore. He paused. His eyes softened. We will open a full review of Yu Menglong's case. The crowd outside the assembly exploded. People screamed, wept, fell to their knees, hugged strangers, lifted signs into the sky like flags of victory. The sound rose into the night like thunder. But the president wasn't finished. There is more, he said carefully. I have received new information. Evidence not previously available to investigators. And because you have demanded the truth will be brought to light. Those words spread across Asia like wildfire. Comment sections erupted into chaos. New evidence? What evidence? This changes everything. Show the truth. We won't stop. The president lowered his gaze to the letter on the table. His hands trembled as he rested his fingers on it, not opening it, just touching it. This letter, he said softly, was written by someone very close to Yu Menglong. It contains details that must be handled with accuracy, sensitivity, and respect. A tear slid down his cheek, but this time, he didn't wipe it away. For him, for his family, for you, justice must be complete. The screen faded to black. But the night didn't end. Moments later, candlelight vigils erupted across Seoul, Busan, Beijing, Shanghai, Hong Kong, Taipei, Singapore, and beyond. Entire cities glowed with lights trembling in the cold air. People held candles high like stars fallen to earth. They sang. They cried. They whispered Yu Menglong's name like a prayer, like a promise, like a vow carved into the night sky. Drone footage from above showed something breathtaking, crowds forming a giant shape across Gwanghwamun Square. A single white feather, glowing softly in the darkness. Yu Menglong's symbol. His legacy. His gentle fight for breath, now carried by millions. By dawn, the petition had climbed to 15.3 million. The world had spoken. And nothing, absolutely nothing, would be the same. Yu Menglong's justice was no longer a request. It was a movement. A storm. A promise sealed by the voices of millions who refused to let him fade. And the world was finally listening. The moment the petition counter crossed 10 million, the world didn't just react, it shifted. Something invisible, something ancient, something bigger than politics or celebrities stirred in the air, like the universe itself paused to listen to the collective cry rising from millions of hearts. Screens everywhere lit up with the same trembling number, 10,000,000 plus. Restaurants, bus stops, hospitals, late-night trains, dorm rooms, police stations, airports. Even convenience stores where tired cashiers stopped mid-scan, staring at the glowing notifications spreading across phones like wildfire. A teenager in Osaka burst out of his gaming chair shouting, "It's happening. It's really happening." His parents rushed into the room thinking something was wrong, only to find him shaking, sobbing, and laughing at the same time. They had never met Yu Menglong. But that night, their son's tears made them feel like they had lost a brother too. In Bangkok, a taxi driver pulled over in the middle of traffic when he saw the notification. He pressed a hand to his chest, whispering, finally the world speaks for him. In Seoul, a university student collapsed onto her dorm bed, clutching her phone as her breath trembled. She had been awake for 18 hours straight refreshing the site, too terrified the world would forget what happened. When she saw the number hit 10 million, her knees gave way and she cried into her pillow until her roommate wrapped her arms around her and held her like family. But the most powerful scenes unfolded outside, on the streets, where people who had never spoken to each other found themselves standing shoulder to shoulder, bound by shared pain. Near Gwanghwamun Square, rain began to drizzle softly, turning the streets silver beneath the lights. The rain didn't scatter the crowd. It strengthened them. A woman raised her umbrella over a teenage boy she had never met, shielding him while he cried into his hands. An elderly couple standing nearby linked arms with strangers. A little girl placed her candle at the base of a giant poster of Yu Menglong, whispering, "For you." At that exact moment, the site froze again, except this time, instead of crashing, it refreshed, and the number suddenly leaped to 10,873,511. A wave of gasps moved through the crowd like a physical force. It felt like watching the tide swallow the shoreline in seconds. A man near the front of the gathering lifted his phone high and shouted, "It's still rising. It's still going." His voice cracked halfway through, but no one cared. Some screamed. Some cheered. Some just held their candles tighter, the flames shaking with their chests. A group of students wearing matching university jackets started chanting, "Justice! Justice! Justice!" Their voices echoed down the long streets of Seoul, bouncing off glass buildings like thunder rippling through a storm. A mother holding her sleeping toddler on her back joined the chant quietly, her lips trembling. She didn't want her child to grow up in a world where truth could be buried. Her voice was soft, but her conviction was steel. Hundreds of miles away, in Beijing, a crowd formed at a metro station exit. People lifted their phones above their heads, the glowing screens illuminating their faces in pale blue light. It looked like an ocean of fireflies trapped in human hands. Someone started singing one of Yu Menglong's old songs, soft, hesitant. Within minutes, an entire crowd of strangers was singing together, their voices rising into the night like a single, wounded prayer. By 3 a.m., the petition number had hit 11.4 million. Then 12.1 million. Then 13 million. The rise was surreal. Unexplainable. Like the world had decided in one synchronized breath, enough. Meanwhile, inside the Korean Blue House, aides rushed down the hallways with tablets and papers clutched to their chests. Security guards exchanged nervous glances. Cabinet ministers were being woken up from their sleep and summoned urgently. The entire government seemed to vibrate with the shockwave created by a population united like never before. Inside one of the briefing rooms, a young intern stared at the petition counter climbing by the second. She whispered to her supervisor, "Sir, this is not a trend. This is history." He nodded slowly, unable to look away from the glowing numbers. Back outside, the rain stopped as suddenly as it had begun. The clouds lifted, revealing a faint silver glow stretching across the sky, a strange calm after the emotional storm. People looked upward instinctively, surprised by how bright the night had become. It felt symbolic, like the world itself understood that something monumental had been set in motion. Right then, a giant LED screen near the city center flickered to life. It was supposed to display ads. But instead, it showed a live counter of the petition signatures climbing in real time. The crowd screamed. People ran forward, filming, crying, shouting updates to friends over calls. "It's 13.6. No, look! It's moving again. It just hit 13.9 million. This is unbelievable." The energy in the air grew so powerful it felt like electricity humming under everyone's skin. Even the police officers stationed nearby lowered their guards and snapped pictures of the screen, unable to stop themselves. One officer whispered, "My daughter loved him." And then came the moment that would be replayed online millions of times. At exactly 3:47 a.m., the number flashed white and turned into 14,000,000 plus. The crowd erupted into the loudest roar the city had heard in years. People hugged strangers. People fell to their knees. People lifted candles high until the entire square looked like a field of floating stars. A journalist streaming live dropped her microphone and covered her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. I've never seen anything like this," she whispered to the camera. And then something even stranger happened. A warm wind swept through the square, gentle, sudden, almost impossible given the cold temperature. People felt it brushing against their cheeks, lifting their hair, swirling around them like an unseen presence acknowledging their unity. Many gasped. Some cried harder. Others looked upward and whispered Yu Menglong's name as though he could hear them. Whether it was coincidence or something more, no one could deny what came next. The counter jumped again. Faster. Higher. Like the movement had developed a heartbeat of its own. 14,420,030. 14,591,128. 14,860,776. 15,002,014. And when it crossed 15 million, the crowd didn't scream this time. They stood still. Silent. Awestruck. United in a way no tragedy or scandal had ever managed to unite them before. It was no longer a petition. No longer a protest. No longer a fan movement. It had become a global force. A living storm. A promise carved into the night. Yu Menglong will have justice. No matter how long it takes. No matter who stands in the way. And the world was ready to fight for him.